So we're going to talk about Messiah and when Messiah has come. Does anyone know when Messiah is coming? If you can, we're going to be done with the class and we can have more dessert together. When is the Messiah coming according to Judaism? Now, obviously, different religions have different beliefs on that. When is Messiah coming? When? When? When the third? Oh, I'm like a date. Okay, yeah. Helena said after this biblical Armageddon war of Gog and Magog, some mythical nations and generals that will attack the Jewish people. Okay, maybe. Year 6000, we're actually going to get there. You studied some Talmud already. I like that. 6000, we're going to get there. It's actually in the Talmud that we're going to study. Anyone else know? When is Mashiach coming? When Elijah Elijah is the harbinger. Elijah is going to announce the coming of the Messiah. Anyone? Any else? Soon? Not yet? There's actually a tradition that if every single Jew in the world observes 2 Shabbats in a row, that Mashiach is going to come. I've heard it before. I don't know. I guess it hasn't happened yet. So thank you again for learning with me. The class is waiting for redemption. When is the Messiah coming? It is based on a Talmudic sugya, a page in the Talmud from Masechet Sanhedrin that we're actually going to learn a lot together. If you haven't studied Talmud yet, buckle your seatbelts and strap in. And hopefully we're going to get to some modern commentary. Also, the Talmud is nearly 2,000 years old. And we're going to hopefully get to 2 modern commentators and even a contemporary poem. So my teaching style is please interrupt me if you have questions. Those online, we're going to say hello to you. And lastly, I was taught this by Rav Avi Strausberg at Hadar Institute, where I study every year. So I have to give kavod and thank you to Rav Avi for teaching me this, and I hope I do a good job in presenting. So we're going to jump in. Masechet Sanhedrin is a legal, the Talmud itself is all legal, but in particular, this is focused on judges and judgments. And this is within an entire chapter that talks about Messiah and different things. So we're just going to jump in. We're in the middle of a discussion between rabbis, and we're going to try to answer the question, when is the Messiah coming and how? Right? Helena already told us it was some grand war. There's going to be like the war that's going to end all wars, and then Messiah's coming. My last intro piece is I actually learned it was one of 2 ways. Either there's going to be this Armageddon, some nuclear war, and then Messiah will come, or the entire world will make peace. Humanity will make peace. Everyone will be together, and Messiah is going to come based on our doing. I'm hoping for the second one, the peace one. But let's see if the rabbis talk about that. I'm going to narrate a little bit just because I think we're having some mic problems, people learning online, so I'm sorry we're not getting as many voices as I would like. And sorry we're in like a frontal thing. I don't actually love teaching frontally. I'm sorry we're not sitting around a table and that you can't see each other and get to know each other. All right. Rav Nachman says to Rabbi Yitzchak, this is 2,000 years ago, rabbis are having a discussion. Have you heard when the son of giants, Bar Naphtali, will come? Rabbi Yitzchak says to him, who are the son of giants? Like he doesn't even know who this is. And Rav Nachman answers, Mashiach, the Messiah. What you should know is this is not Bar Naphtali. How he opens the discussion is not a normal way about talking about him. Any of our Hebrew speakers here, the word nafal means yipol, is that right? Nofelet, to fall. So this is the sons of the fall. If you know Bible and Genesis, before the story of Noah, God created these half humans, half divine creatures that were considered giants who are called Bar Nephilim. So this is sort of an allusion perhaps to this sort of proto-human thing that was also divine, but he says this is the Messiah. Okay, Rav Nachman says, it was written on that day, I established the sukkah of David that is fallen. This is why the Messiah is called Bar Nephilim. Anyone hear this phrase before, the sukkah of David that has fallen? It's from the prophet Amos, which you can see later, who is a biblical prophet. Do you think David built a sukkah? King David. What did King David want to build? The temple, right? King David wanted to build the temple, and the rabbis use this phrase that the sukkah of David fell. What happened to the temple in Jerusalem? It fell. The temple fell. So what is our belief when the Messiah comes? What will happen to the temple? It'll be rebuilt. Now, I don't know about you. Have you ever built a sukkah that has fallen over? Or at least if it hasn't fallen over, I don't buy a new sukkah every year or build a new sukkah every year. I disassemble my sukkah and I reassemble my sukkah. My sukkah is meant to come back. The temple, we pray, will come back. And that will be when Mashiach comes, when Messiah comes. So this is sort of our opening. And just a couple ideas, like when is Messiah coming? The second source here is from the book of Numbers from the Torah. God is saying, what I see for them is not yet, what I behold will not be soon. So when is Messiah according to this? Yet and soon. By the way, this was more than 3,000 years ago. We're still waiting. Right? If you turn the page over, you can see in bold, this is from the prophet Amos, who lived about 9th century BCE. In that day, I will set up again the fallen booth of David. A time is coming. Has it happened yet? No. Okay. So now we're going to jump back into the Talmud. The rabbis taught with regard to a 7-year period. They're going to teach. Now they're going to try to figure out when was Messiah coming. According to the Shemitah, the sabbatical cycle, if you know that is, the 7-year cycle that land in Israel is supposed to lay fallow on the 7th year, that the land has a Shabbat. This is when Messiah is going to come. Messiah is the son of David because we believe that it is from the Davidic line. So that's why it's called son of David. All right. The first year, I will cause rain to fall upon one city and rain not to fall upon another city. The second year, arrows of famine will be shot. There will be famine in certain places. The third year, there'll be a great famine. Men, women, children, pious men of action will die. Torah will be forgotten by those who study it. Year 4, there will be plenty and also not plenty. Year 5, there will be great plenty. Everyone will eat to their satisfaction, drink a lot, rejoice. Torah will return. Year 6, heavenly voice will be heard, whatever that means. And the 7th year, war of Gog and Magog, Halina, will be waged involving the Jewish people. And the year after year 7, Messiah will come. Sounds like a pretty laid out plan. Now, in your idea of looking at the world, have any of these events ever happened? Has rain fallen in some places and rain not fallen in other places? Has there been famine and drought in some place and not in other place? Has Torah been forgotten, maybe? Has there been years of plenty? Right? Heavenly voice heard? That one I'm not sure. End war of end wars? Maybe. So the rabbis ask, hasn't there been several cycles like this that have transpired, and nonetheless the Messiah didn't come? And then the answer is, well, maybe it wasn't in this order. It has to be exactly in this order for Messiah to come. So the rabbis are trying to figure this out. Does this sound like a good cycle for Messiah to come? Nobody's sold here. Well, to give you a little sidebar on that, if you go to page 3, I'm just running us through. Thank you for learning with me quickly. If you recite the daily Amidah called the Shmona Esrei, does anyone know how many blessings are in the daily devotional prayer? You'd think it's 18 because it's called Shmona Esrei, which means 18, but there's actually 19 because we're Jewish. They added another one later. But if you count on prayer number 7 in the 19 is the prayer for redemption. And that's what this is saying. Why did the rabbis institute the prayer for redemption as the 7th blessing? Since the Jewish people are destined to be redeemed in the 7th year of the sabbatical, and then they go through the whole cycle again. So this is something that the rabbis actually believed in, this 7-year cycle, and then Messiah would come. Nobody sold here? Neither am I. Okay. So we're just going on. So now the rabbis are going to add to more. Okay, tell me about really what's going to happen before Messiah comes. And if you go on the bottom of 3, the underlined line, the generation that Messiah comes, the hall of the assembly of sages will be designated for prostitution. The Galilee will be destroyed. Gavlan will be desolate. This is another part of Israel. And the residents on the border of Israel will flee from their neighboring enemies and circulate from city to city as refugees and receive little sympathy. Sound a little familiar, perhaps? The wisdom of scholars will diminish, sin-fearing people will be despised, and the face of a generation will be the face of a dog. What do you think about that? Any of those things seem sort of like what's happened recently? Right? Have we experienced, this is experience. How would you characterize these experiences that the rabbis are saying are the precursors to Messiah coming? What words would you say? I know this is supposed to be an upbeat class. We're going to get there. Messiah is going to come soon. Shame, destruction, loss, a fall from grace, difficulty. Yeah. Not going to say no. I'm not going to say no. So I'm just sort of rolling through. There's like a lot to cover. This, by the way, I didn't say this. When I said it at Hadar, we did 7 hours of this. So I'm going to give you the 40-minute version and hopefully make it through. That's why I'm sort of going quickly. Now we're on page 4. Anyone who deviates from evil will be deemed insane by people. Again, this is a description of the precursor to Messiah coming. Initially, it will be that there is no truth found anywhere in the world. Could one argue that there are inklings of this happening in the world today? Right? I'm not going to read it, but there's a whole story, this middle thing on this page. Read it when you go home, but it's a story of how truth doesn't exist at the moment. Yeah. Baraita it's equivalent to a Mishnah. Now we're getting like real technical. Mishnah is the early part of the Talmud from about the year 200 BCE to 200 CE, and the Talmud is 200 to 500. Mishnah is earlier and considered a little bit more authoritative. A Baraita is a teaching from the time of the Mishnah, earlier teaching that wasn't included in the Mishnah. So it's equivalent to a Mishnah, but it didn't make the cut. That's a Baraita. Okay. So now we're going to go to the end of the second paragraph. During the generation in which Mashiach is going to come, youths will humiliate elders. Elders will stand in deference before youths. Daughters will rebel against their mothers, and a bride against her mother-in-law. God forbid. Right, but again, what are these things characterizing here? There's what? Conflict. There's no humanity anymore, right? No derech eretz, no respect. There's no respect, right? When there's a lack of, when respect disappears, maybe that's a sign Mashiach's gonna come. Okay, here you go. It's taught in a Braita. Rabbi Nechemia says, during the generation that Mashiach comes, arrogance will proliferate. The costs of living will corrupt people so that they engage in deceit. The vine will produce fruit, but wine will still be expensive with tariffs. And the entire monarchy will be converted to heresy. There will be no inclination among people to accept rebuke. What do you think? We're there. I mean, you could argue we're there, but as Helena says, we probably could have argued we were there, every cycle, every 50 years we could have said we were there, right? And Mashiach didn't come yet. So what are the rabbis saying here? Like, what type of society are the rabbis saying is ripe for coming of Messiah? Is it that everybody's getting along? Is it that there's kavod and respect and everybody acknowledges their neighbor for how great they are? I just went to a beautiful class about Musar that Rabbi Matt Cohn taught about hakarat hatov, gratitude, and being, acknowledging the good in every single person that you meet. Is that what this is talking about? No, right? Adarabba, as we say, exactly the opposite. Right? There are no values. This is a bottoming out of Torah and of society. Did you want to say something? I cut you off. Right? And just to add on to it, this is the bottom line there. The world will be redeemed only when the Jewish people reach their lowest point. What do you think about that? This is in the Talmud. Right? The rabbis say the initiation, the inception of Messiah coming is when Judaism hits rock bottom. And then Messiah will redeem us. God will send the Messiah to lift us up and redeem us. Is this what we want? Does this have to be necessary? What? A lot of it, yeah. Holocaust, Inquisition, right? We can go down the list. Pogroms. October 7th, right? Go down the list. That's just a few. Okay, so we're going to get there. I hope you're going to stay with me. We do have like an uplift at the end. We just have to get there. Okay, and we're rolling through Talmud really fast. Okay, we're on page 5. The Messiah will not come until the number of students of Torah diminish. Alternatively, the Messiah will not come until the pruta will cease from the purse. You won't have any money. Alternatively, the Messiah will not come until they despair from redemption, as though there were no supporter or helper of the Jewish people. Are we getting rock bottom yet? Right? The rabbis. Now, let's just step back for a second. The rabbis of the Talmud, or the late Mishnahs, that were living in what was then renamed Palestine by the Romans. This is after the destruction of the Second Temple. This is probably after Hadrian, who severely persecuted the rabbis. And if you know the story of the 10 martyrs that traditionally is recited during Yom Kippur, of the rabbis that were caught teaching Torah that were killed in horrible ways, like Rabbi Akiva, who was wrapped with a Torah scroll around him and burnt alive, right? So that's, we have to think about the context, right? That's these rabbis, right? They're after this. Like, can we get any, nobody is supporting us, no one's helping. And perhaps we could say the same thing today. Obviously different context, but they're still the same. Do we despair from redemption? Are we giving up hope? That's the question. What do you think? Are you at that place now that you're giving up redemption? Well, I'm going to give you, here's the first lift. You ready? We're in the middle paragraph here. Rabbi Zera, when he found sages actually talking about the Mashiach coming that didn't give up doubt, he says, don't delay from counting them. There are actually 3 matters that come only by means of diversion of attention. 3 things happen when you don't think about them anymore. What are the 3? Messiah, something you lost, and a scorpion. What does that mean? Like, what's the connection here between a Messiah, a scorpion, and a lost item? What do you think? I'm a little stumped. Okay, maybe. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
So now we're getting deep. The lost items, the Torah. Something that is pursuing you, we got in the back, yeah? Mm-hmm. All right, beautiful. So when I study Talmud, and I don't have a teacher in front of me, I study from Rabbi Michelle Farber, who has a podcast called Hadran. And I did relearn the sugya from her. And I think her takeaway from this is like a watch pot never boils. And that was her first, obviously, it's not very deep, right? But that idea, right, when you expect something, right, it like never comes. Right? Mashiach, we're waiting, fervently waiting, doesn't come, right? Maybe if we don't think about it, Mashiach will come. And an object, like, let's say, God forbid you lose, I guess this is being broadcast, but I did a wedding last week, and as I met the couple right before we were going to get married, she was getting married, she was using her grandmother of blessed memory's ring she was going to get married with. And I walked in half an hour before the chuppah, and she said, the hotel lost my grandmother's ring. Every single person in the bridal party in the family looked and looked and looked, couldn't find the ring. Heartbroken. Guess what? She said, let it be. You know, it is what it is. It's sort of fate and whatever else. And guess what happened as soon as the wedding was over? Found the ring. So maybe it was one thing like that. What Rabbi Michelle Farber says, or she's not Rabbi, what Michelle Farber says is also with the scorpion, like when you're really attentive, like watching. You know, I visited my in-laws in Scottsdale, and they have scorpions sometimes. When you're like watching, right? You never see a scorpion. But then when you put your foot in your shoe and you didn't look, guess what's there? Scorpion. So she said sort of the same thing. Okay. You can tell me later what you think about that. All right, now we're rolling. Here, Rennie, thank you. We're in the 3rd paragraph. Rav Katina says 6,000 years is the duration of the world. It will be in ruins for 1,000 years. For the day of God lasts 1,000 years. There's a whole thing on that. But if we jump down, 6,000 years is the duration of the world. 2,000 of those years are characterized by chaos. 2,000 of the years are filled with Torah. That's the year of the patriarchs until the end of the Mishnah. And 2,000 of years will bring about the coming of the Messiah. Now, here's my question to you. What year are we in? 57, 85. Does that mean we're pretty close to Mashiach? Now remember, the rabbis writing this were 2,000 years before. Right, so 2,000 years before, they said the world was going to be 6,000 years, and then they're actually going to debate. One rabbi says it's 7,000 years, another rabbi says it's 5,000 years. But what do you think? I told you when is Messiah coming, and guess what none of you said? Well, actually, Rennie did, right? Nobody gave me a date. Nobody gave me a date. Are you sold yet? Yes? Year 6,000? Can I go to Vegas and put money on it? Mashiach's coming? It's soon. Soon, you could get your money back. I bet you get good odds. Okay, we're on page 6. Elijah the prophet said to Rav Yehuda, I don't know if you know, but the rabbis were on a first-name basis with Elijah and actually talked to Elijah. It's true. Elijah the prophet spoke to, he said, the world will exist no fewer than 85 Jubilee cycles, which means 4,250 years. Remember, they were a lot earlier than that, the rabbis. And during the final Jubilee, Mashiach will come. Rashi says this is what Elijah said. Until that time, don't anticipate the Messiah coming. Right? For, whatever point. Like, let's say Rennie says, Messiah's going to come at year 6,000. If you're before then, don't think about it. Don't anticipate Mashiach. But when you get to year 6,000, what are you supposed to do? Yearn for Messiah. Our world's got to be better then. I'm ready. But Elijah didn't inform Rav Yehuda of actually which day they're supposed to start anticipating Messiah. Then the world, another rabbi comes through. He said he found an ancient manuscript in Rome that says when it's going to happen, and the world will be destroyed. Then God will renew the world only after the passage of 7,000 years. The other rabbi says 5,000 years. Okay. After all this, yes? Yes. Right. The question is, what will Messiah do when Messiah comes? Things are pretty bad. Yeah. I think it's world peace. Everybody comes together. Yeah. We're going to get there. I'm going to say, give me 5 more minutes. All right, I understand what you're saying. I only have 15 minutes. I got to get there, and then I get our uplift. Is that okay if I know I said I could take questions, but let's just go. Last thing on this page. The rabbis say those who calculate the end of days should be cursed. Right after the rabbi just spent, half a page saying 6,000 years, 42,000 years, all this stuff, the rabbis say, anyone who starts doing it, you're cursed. And Messiah won't come, right? You pick a date, Messiah doesn't come, what are you going to do then? You're going to give up. Messiah's never coming, right? That's why they don't want you to lose faith, even though they say it, because though Mashiach may tarry, we have to wait for Messiah. Okay, we're on page 7. All right, happy are those who wait. Okay, here we go. Here's your answer. Middle of the top paragraph, page 7. Since we are waiting the end of days and God is also waiting. By the way, the rabbis don't characterize like God is also waiting for Mashiach. Now, if I ask you, who's going to bring Messiah? God, right? Wouldn't you think like God is waiting? Seems sort of counterintuitive. If God is the one who will bring Messiah, that God's also waiting. So then the rabbis are going to say, why is God waiting? Because the divine attribute of judgment prevents God's coming. Because we are not worthy of being redeemed. And the divine attribute called deen, judgment or punishment, is the divine attribute that is showing. You might know that we say God has 2 parallel positions: judgment, punishment, and mercy, compassion. And our actions determine how God is going to act. So we are we're forcing God's hand to punish us. But we have to work to force God's hand to be merciful. And then Mashiach's going to come. So that's sort of option 1. So now we're in the middle of 7. All the end of days that were calculated past, the matter depends only upon repentance and good deeds. That's what we just said. When the Jewish people repent, God, what will happen? They'll be redeemed and Messiah will come. But then, of course, like every other discussion, the rabbis are going to disagree. And Rabbi number 2 says, even without repenting, they will be worthy of redemption due to the suffering they endured during the exile. So why is Mashiach going to come? They suffered. They suffered. You suffered enough. It's time for the Messiah to come. How do you determine that? How do you determine when the suffering's enough? Yeah, Bob? Where does it come from? Yeah, it's Torah. Bible, not Torah. Bible. Bible. Yeah, it's in the prophets. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't bring, there's a lot of, Isaiah has a lot, and yeah, there's a lot in there. Yeah. All right, we'll just go to the last line here. All right, you will be deemed not through repentance and good deeds, but through the will of God. You may have heard of, there's the Piasnetzer Rav, who was the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, also named Rabbi Kalanimus Shapiro, and he taught, now, he was the rabbi in the Warsaw Ghetto and was murdered in the Holocaust. He taught that it was always necessary to hold on to hope, that you shouldn't give up. And earlier we saw this question, does Messiah come when we give up hope, or should we never give up hope? So that's what we're going to look at in just a couple minutes as we sort of breeze along. Okay, oh, we're here. We ended the sugya. Mazel tov. Congratulations. Now we're going to get to two contemporary teachings. Any questions on the Talmud before we get to two contemporary sources? Thank you for indulging me. Sorry I have the mic and I'm sort of rolling along. Yes, question in the back. All right, it's a good question, right? Is there some inner circle of elite mystics or righteous people that they know when Messiah is coming and no one else knows? I don't know. They didn't tell me. Unclear. Yeah, unclear. It's a great question. Unclear. In general, Judaism doesn't have this sort of like inner elite Illuminati thing, and at least anymore. But I cut out, there's a whole story. If you know about the Lamed Vavniks, the 36 righteous people every generation that hold up the world, that's actually in the Talmud in this page, which I didn't do, because I didn't think it's sort of relevant to this. All right, let me give you two contemporary or fairly contemporary rabbis. The first was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, writing in 1973, right after the Yom Kippur War. If you know anything about the Yom Kippur War, was it good or bad? It was considered a bad war. Like, Israel was surprised and suffered significant casualties, even though Israel won. It was a very difficult war for the Jewish people and for Israel. So he was asked this question. I want to believe wholeheartedly that our era indeed is the time of the beginning of the redemption, meaning Messiah. But my heart is not at ease because of the many and difficult wars that have befallen us, causing numerous and painful casualties. They lead me to doubt this. If God wants to redeem God's people, couldn't have God done it in an easier way? Right? That's sort of the question we've been asking. Right? And particularly, this is immediately after the Yom Kippur War in 1973. This is only a piece of his answer that Rabbi Chaim David Halevi says. Among those who doubt the messianic nature of our times, there are those who have raised both in writing and orally this piercing question. Why it seems that the divine providence chose such a difficult path for the redemption of Israel? If this is indeed the beginning of redemption, why is it through harsh words and bloodshed? Could it be, God forbid, that God's hand is limited in redeeming Israel in an easier and more pleasant way, a path adorned with roses? What do you think that means? This great rabbi of one of the largest cities in Israel. What does he say? Could it be, God forbid, that God's hand is limited in making it an easier path to redemption? It doesn't say you're wrong, right? It doesn't say everything's great. Yeah, Michelle? Right, so what Michelle is saying, that maybe it's all about us and not about God, right? It's how we bring it. Any other thoughts? What do you think? Yeah, Gail? I'm gonna paraphrase. Order follows chaos. Growth follows destruction. Yeah. Did you read the next source? Did you read the next source? There, you're on the same wavelength. Beautiful. We're going to get there in a second. Any other thoughts? What do you think? What does that phrase mean? That perhaps God's hand is limited. Do we believe God is all powerful? God is almighty. God is all knowing. God has the ability to be everywhere. And those are the three things. But, yeah, so, right, this is getting to Michelle. Maybe God has expectations of mankind, or humanity also. Right? I find it interesting, and this text was brought to me by Rabbi, right? It's just interesting that this Orthodox rabbi is questioning sort of not just why God is sort of letting our world and letting Israel be attacked so much, but also questioning even God's power within this world. Yeah. Maybe God can't be there to watch every step. So here's my question. Like, that concerns me. I don't know about you. I believe that a God watches over me, protects me. Right? That's sort of like, if I don't believe that God is all three, powerful, everywhere, all-knowing and all good, I don't know. That seems to break my concept of what I believe in God. And when you start going down that road, it sort of makes theology very difficult, and prayer and all these other things that we do. So I don't have that's another class. I mean, that's another whole class. Yeah, Brad, and then Ginny. Maybe that's what everybody's sort of getting at, right? This collaboration, that we are shutafot, that we are partner. God made us to be partners with God, right? And that God can only do so much in this world. Maybe that's sort of what he was saying, right? That part of God created this world so that we have to take action, and that there's human agency in there. Ginny? Beautiful. I'm not going to say it as beautifully as Ginny, but concept of sort of assume that God constricts God's self. God limits oneself in order to give humanity to be able to elevate creation in this world. So let's look at the last source and getting the signal. This is from a great rabbi called Netivot Shalom, if you've ever studied with him, fairly contemporary, 20th century. And it's a very long piece. I'm going to sort of run us through the most important pieces. Okay. So the question is, what happened when Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery? Okay, like that's sort of the big story here. And that first underline is, well, everybody else was doing something. God began to create the light of Messiah at that moment when Joseph was being sold into. Now, is Joseph being sold into slavery a good thing or a bad thing? Bad thing. Bad moment for the Jewish people, right? Were the brothers being nice to their brother? Were they tricking their father? Right? All the above. It's interesting here that the Netivot Shalom is saying, this is the moment that God started the gears turning to create Messiah. So now he gives a bunch of reasons why. At that time, the collective state of Israel was a low point, and the house of Israel was utterly shattered. If you remember, there was that phrase from the Talmud that said it's that moment that Messiah is going to come. What appeared to be a state of degradation, though, was in truth an ascent to a high level of sanctity. He gives a long thing to say that actually the brothers had like high aspirations and good intentions, and I'm not going to go into that. but this is sort of option one. And that, therefore, was the ideal time to be occupied with the creating of the light of Messiah. So our lowest point, our moment that we're shattering, we still have positive intentions, and that's why we get the reward of Messiah. That's option one. Option two, page 9. Another explanation is that before any growth, there must first be a state of absence or decay. A seed, here you go, Gail. A seed that is destined to sprout must first decay, leaving only a spark of life within it. From this remnant, then new growth begins. Beautiful. And true, right? True within nature. Beautiful. Gail, you and the Netivot Shalom must have known each other. Beautiful. Option 3. Another explanation of the spark of life is the refusal to accept one's current state, a lack of resignation. There are those, when they fall from their spiritual level, they succumb to despair. God knew that the Jewish people were filled with hope and refused to give up. Even in the deepest darkness, there is a point of light with a broken heart to still refuse to accept one's situation. This is the spark of life from which renewed growth begins. What do you think about that? Yeah. Yeah. And resiliency. I mean, you could look at potentially Israel right now, right? Israel hasn't given up, right? Yeah? Beautiful. I like that. I mean, obviously, this one was moving to me, the idea of not giving up hope, which is called yeush, right? Despairing so much that there's no hope. Even though if you saw in the Talmud, the rabbi said that perhaps that is a precursor to Messiah coming. I didn't like that answer personally, but I like the answer that even at our lowest point, we have hope. That we have hope. And they actually, we're not going to do it. Netivot Shalom goes into a whole way that actually what the brothers did is they still had hope. I don't know. Even Joseph had hope when he was being sold as a slave. I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch, but that's okay. And now Mordechai. He gives a whole long example about Mordechai. When he cried out to God, they were filled with hope, confident the miracle will come. Okay, here's the closing line of Netivot Shalom. All the miracles and wonders that have occurred for Israel have been drawn from their refusal to accept their circumstances. This refusal is the eternal strength of the Jewish people. They do not reconcile themselves with degradation. The entire light of Messiah depends on the Jewish people's refusal to accept their situation. This clear and unwavering faith in the daily arrival of Messiah is the spark of life that will bring forth the Messiah. What do you think? Think the eternal strength of the Jewish people is that they don't give up hope. Oh, there you go. Howard is doubling down on it. Okay. That's the process. Beautiful, right? So we're going to end with a poem, but that's my message for you. It's not about what date. Right? The rabbis say if you look, try to find a date, you're going to get cursed because it's not going to happen on the date that you pick. Right? And it's even if life is really difficult, it's hard to be a Jew. It's hard to make our way through this world. It's hard to be in a country. It's hard to be in our country, right? However you're feeling, right? Don't give up hope. Don't despair. Because of the human agency, right? And when we start to plant seeds, I'm going to be a little metaphorical, right? When we plant seeds, when we take some of those actions, when we're nachshon, guess what God is doing? I don't have that page. Meanwhile, right, God is creating the light of Messiah. We're going to bring it because, if you remember, God is waiting. Remember, that was the image from the Talmud. God is waiting like we're waiting. We need to take an action that's going to bring it. So we're going to conclude with Marge Piercy. Sorry, this is page 10. You can tell me if you like it or not, and if it fits. Tomatoes rosy as perfect baby's buttocks. Eggplants glossy as wax fenders. Maybe I shouldn't have read this. Purple neon, flawless glistening peppers. Pole beans fecund and fast-growing as Jack's Viagra sped stock. Biggest truck, tire zinnias, that mildew will never wilt. Roses weighing down a bush, never touched by black spot. Brave little fruit trees shouldering up their spotless ornaments of glass fruit. I lie on the couch under a blanket of seed catalogs, ordering far too much. Sleet slides down the windows, a wind edged with ice knives through every crack. Lie to me, sweet garden mongers. I want to believe every promise, to trust in 5-pound tomatoes and dahlias brighter than the sun that was eaten by frost last week. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. And the seed is going to be planted. Thank you for learning with me. Chag Sameach.